In the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everybody. It's budget time, and before we get started, I want to say that we heard that Joe isn't going to be able to make it tonight with some medical stuff, so we wish him well and hope everything's okay there. And our first order of business is to elect the presiding officer, who will take over from me for the rest of the meeting.
Nominate Mike Fleck.
Oh, I'm gonna decline. I have fire budget at 7, so I might have to.
Okay.
Early. Thank you, though.
Darby, would you decline?
I'll nominate Jennifer.
Okay, put your finger in your nose for everybody.
Second. I'm here for you.
Yeah, appreciate it. What's that mean that I'm in?
No, was it second?
It was.
Yeah.
Okay, seconded.
Seconded for Jen.
Yes.
Okay, any other nominations? Okay. Are you okay with it?
Sure.
All right, all in favor of making Jen chair of the budget committee this evening?
Aye.
All opposed?
I get something great.
You win in a landslide.
Oh, lucky me. Okay. Looks like then we have the presentation of the budget message now.
All right. So you have a copy of the budget message, but instead of just reading it, which seems very boring to me, I wanted to give you the same information that's in the budget message, but also a little bit more information on how we created the budget, to give you a little bit of background. So our mission, vision, goals, and our work are the center of what we do. We're focused like we've never been focused before in our district. Could I have somebody read our mission? Thank you, Duane.
Mission: in South Lane School District, we empower learning, ensure belonging, and prepare every student to graduate college or career ready.
Our vision, who would read that?
Vision: every student graduates prepared, engaged, and empowered with a vision for their future.
That leads us to our 3 goals. Who would read goal number 1? Who thought I was going to make you read today? Sorry. But I'll be talking a lot, so it'll be good that you talk a little bit. Darby?
1, build a culture and climate of care and belonging by providing students and staff time, supports, and connection.
2?
I'm good.
Thanks, Tom.
Raise academic achievement by supporting district staff and becoming an effective professional learning community, PLC.
And 3.
Bridge students' strengths, passions, and interests with the current skills and knowledge necessary to enter a high-wage, high-demand career reflective of the global market.
Oh, sorry. You still did it. Thank you. And then I'll read this one. This is our work. You've seen the flyer, you've seen the video. But this is the how of our work, that we're happy and proud, or we need to be happy and proud. We need to believe in our impact, and we need to own our learning. And when we talk about putting together a budget, this is what we look at. We don't think of all the different things that we could add, take away before we look at our base of what we're really about. So we also take a look at measurements for student success, and there's 5. I added in a catch-all at the end, but when we're talking about student success, our primary goal is to educate students. And in order to do that, we need to measure reading, math. They need to be here. They need to be on track to graduate when they get to high school, and they need to graduate. And so this is also what we look at when we're forming a budget. What is going to get us we're not where we need to be in many of those areas, but what is going to help us to improve our reading, to improve our math, to increase attendance, and to keep up our 9th grade on track to graduate rate and to increase our graduation rate. I have Youth Truth Panorama and ELPA testing up there as well, because that's all really important data as well. But these other 5 measures have been set by the state, and I actually agree that those are 5 really good measures of what we're doing in school specifically to reach our goal of increasing student achievement. So let's get into the budget. So the factors that played into formulating the budget, first of all, there were some time limited funds. So you've heard CCC before. If you're on the budget committee, maybe you haven't. This is state money that we received to do some social emotional learning work. Specifically, community care specialists were paid for out of the CCC money. We also paid for some other SEL activities, some trainings and other things. And that was a limited time funding. Other limited time funding was ESSER. We got millions of dollars at the pandemic to do good work, improve or help with lost learning and other things. And we're completing all of that spending by September of this year. So that's funding that was limited. Another factor is that we have lower teacher experience than we did 3 or 4 years ago. We predict that it will be at or lower than it was last year. Because what that means is that's factored into the state funding, and we get less money if our teachers are younger because they figure they cost less money. And so that factored into the funding. Also declining enrollment. Over the past year, we've lost students mainly at the elementary level. At our larger schools, we were down about 35-ish students from this time last year, down 25 at London. We're up at the middle school, down slightly, about 15 or 20 at the high school. And we're roughly the same. I think we're up 2 at Duerst now. So, but as a district, declining enrollment means that either this year or next year, your funding is going to go down because we have a little bit of leeway. We can use this year's enrollment or last year's enrollment. But then the next year you have to use last year's or this year's. And so that is something that we're watching really carefully. Also, there tends to usually be decrease in title funding and school improvement funds, and that has been no different this year.
So all these factors, what are we talking about as far as losing staff? Are we having to lay off any staff or please?
No.
Okay.
That's the next slide, Sherry.
Oh, okay.
But let me just answer your question now.
Okay.
Yes, let me get there. Give me like 45 more seconds to show you these other two.
I always do that.
It's okay. I'm good with it. So cost increases, specialized needs of students, out of district placements for kiddos who have particular needs. And also kids who have particular needs in the district. Those costs have gone up, and we don't always get paid for those costs from the state. The restoration of reductions from 23-24, as you recall, if you're on the budget committee last year or board, last year we made some cuts to maintenance, the maintenance budget, the technology budget, the transportation budget, and school budgets to bridge the gap between what we had and what we needed. We need to put those, you don't do that for 2 years for obvious reasons, and so we put those back in the budget. Insurance has continued to go up. A couple of law changes have caused some concern budgeting wise. We don't necessarily know exactly how much those are going to cost at this point. That's for unemployment and employee leave. And just so you understand, employee leave affects us because folks can be gone for longer, which is paid for by the state, but they don't pay for the substitute that's required while they're gone. So then that's an increased cost to the district. The charter payments have gone up, and Celia will tell you more about that. Our asset, our PACE insurance has gone up, and utilities have gone up. So this, if you look at this slide, and then we're getting, I promise, it's right there. But if you look at this slide, the blue line represents enrollment. Okay, it's gone down, especially this past year. It's gone up and down over the past 4 or 5 years. There is a year missing because the COVID year data wasn't accurate. But you'll see that it goes down. But our staff, the number of staff, and this is just educational staff, but it's the same for all of our staff. Our staff numbers have gone up over the past 6 or 7 years. and our enrollment has started to go down. And that is going to be a gap in funding. And so that is something that we did something about now, but we're also going to have to continue for the next few years to watch that and to make sure we're planful to address that concern. So what we did this year to balance the budget. Sherry asked, I mean, that's the first question anyone would ask, I think, Sherry, is, well, is this going to affect people's jobs? And it's not.
Right.
And based on what we know about this year, next year, and the year after, that's not the plan. Like, that's not the plan to affect individuals and their jobs. We are going to have to balance out the number of students with the number of positions we have. Oftentimes you can do that with attrition in other ways. This year, we had an unfilled position that we aren't filling, and there may be others that come along. Temporary positions that sometimes stay from year to year. We cut those off and made those temporary just for this current year and didn't include them in next year's budget. And also we consolidated a couple of positions where we could. And it was both at London, and there was also a part of the person that was at London that was doing some district work. Again, didn't affect anyone's job, it's just assignment. And so those are the position reductions. There was also another cut that we didn't make last year that we planned on making last year. We didn't add a teacher. We did not make a cut from the high school last year as we had planned because of some staffing issues and student issues, but then we made that this year. So there's one less teacher at the high school this year that's coming in. We also did decrease professional development spending. We using the new program that Celia is going to talk about a bit. We really focused on using historical data to really be precise as we can to predict what we're going to spend. When you have a little bit more money, you can say, oh, I'm sure it probably will go up 10–20%, so let's just put 20. But we really did some research and really tried to make sure that we were very precise in how we budgeted. Looking at utilities, fuel, professional services, staffing, etc. But when you do that, you have to make sure that you are precise in your record keeping and in your the process of monitoring the budget throughout the year. And Celia and I have already talked about how that's going to happen over the next year, is keeping a much tighter rein on the spending that we do to make sure that we stay within budget. That ends up with that's less cushion, right? But we felt comfortable about doing that. We also used some of our reserves, ending fund balance at ESSER, and also moved the integrated guidance isn't reserves, but that's there were some positions that we had, some in integrated guidance and some in the general fund, and we did move some of those around to save general fund money. So just a few things that I wanted to point out with regards to our 3 goals and this budget. This budget still has fairly low class sizes. I mean, that's something we'll have to look at over the next couple of years. We'll start looking at that in the fall. But that's an advantage that our district has. That's something that people that have a choice whether to move here or not will look at class sizes, and that is something that's inviting. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that we have already seen some successes when it comes to elementary reading based on our coaching and the training that we're doing with admin. Over the past 2 years, our reading scores, our DIBELS reading scores have gone up about 10% at elementary. We hope to see that. I think we'll see that same growth this year. We get our data here in just a few weeks. We look forward to seeing that in math next year as we have a new curriculum. We have coaching at the elementary and then also at the high school. Coaching at elementary is lit coaching. Coaching at the high school is instructional coaching. Coaching on how to teach. At the high school, our 9th grade on track numbers have gone up for the past 4 years. And so far, according to second trimester, we're on pace to be much higher even than they were last year. Now that could go down. We haven't checked in on grade individual kiddos grades at the high school, but that seems pretty promising as well. And also our preliminary ELPA scores for our ELL students has come in higher than it has been before, which could be attributed to what we're doing at Bohemia differently with our ELL students. And we're exiting more students at the elementary than we had before, so that's all good news. But we need to continue to see that good news, and that's why there's still a focus on this. The other thing that I'll point out in academic achievement is, we're on the right-hand side, use of data. The MAPS is an assessment system that we're putting into place next year with integrated guidance funds, that will give us data on students K-12 in reading and math, and I think it starts at 3rd grade in science. If you've looked at data with us before, you've done this on our student success committee. We don't have reading and math data that's useful at the high school level and the middle school level, because the state testing data is not complete. When you have 40% of 50% of your parents and students opting out of testing, and that is a right that they have, we don't have accurate data then. When you have 20% of parents at elementary opting their students out, we don't have accurate data. And in order to track progress, but also to make improvements, we have to have that data. And so that is something that we'll have beginning next year, which we're really pretty excited about. With regards to a culture of care and belonging, we still have quite a staff dedicated to the social and emotional needs of kiddos. We've talked about social emotional learning specialists before. You've heard the term peace learning circles, both from Jennifer and from others. You'll learn more about that, board members, at your June 10th meeting. But that's budget committee members. That's a tool we use in many elementary classes to, it's not a separate program, it's something you use in between academic activities to make sure that you're fostering good social emotional health for kiddos and making sure they'll be able to focus in the classes they learn. We have community care specialists in every school, focusing on the needs of students and families so that students can be in school. And again, you have to remember, all the activities we do in culture of care and belonging are to prepare kids to be able to learn. That's the purpose, because in the end, that is our purpose, is that all kids learn. And then the last goal is career technical education. Sherry knows this, but around the county, having 11 programs of study in a high school our size is, or in a district our size, is pretty unheard of. And being able to provide that many opportunities for students to get a flavor for what careers they might want to go into or what further training they might want to go into is pretty cool. A few other highlights that are still included with this budget, we still are making with partnerships within the community, both here in Cottage Grove and also in Eugene, and also student connections. We're always increasing the amount of internships and shadows that we're doing, including some new work that we're doing with the health clinic that'll be right next to the high school. We're starting some pretty cool conversations with them. We also started this year, as you'll remember, those of you that have been on the budget committee before, and board members, you'll remember that we have internships within our district where interns are interning with our own employees. And that's been pretty cool. Jesse has a really good one in his department that they use to gain some pretty cool experience. So another thing that I'll point out to everyone is that if you want to know more about career and technical education, you all have done a tour, but y'all can, there's a showcase coming up on the 13th of June at the park, Bohemia Park, at the first concert in the park. We'll have quite a presence there. And there'll be kids with cameras and kids with all sorts of stuff, selling things and showing you what they're doing at the high school. So it'll be pretty cool. Other items of note in this budget, we still have money set aside for school resource officer. And if that is something that the Cottage Grove Police Department elects to do, we have money set aside for that. If they don't, that will go to our ending fund balance.
And that's at the high school only? Or?
That's where they may be stationed, but when we have a school resource officer, they're a resource officer to all of our schools. Yeah. And the Cottage Grove Police Department has done a great job with that.
That did not end up in the budget.
He's looking for grants and other ways to fund that. Dental clinic. We have a dental clinic. We're joining with Lane County. But that still is a cost that we have, but it's a good thing. Not complaining about that. And also we run the Darby Aquatic Center. We get support from the city, but we run the center, and that's in our budget as well. over the next 2 years, we have to keep our eye on balancing enrollment and staffing. We have to continue to advocate for state funding. You might think, oh, funding has been going up in the state, and it has. But what was that?
Costs have gone up too.
They have, and what happens is the increase, the level at which they're increasing does not match the level at which costs are increasing. Because you not only have to look at staff costs like COLAs at 3.5 and 4%, which are fair, but you also have to look at all of the other things, fuel and insurance and unemployment and all the other things that are going up so drastically. You can't keep up unless you, like, if you look year to year, what percentage the school funding is going up, that percentage is not matching the percentage that costs are going up at. So that's something that we need to continue to advocate for. We need to continue to plan for future expenditures, fields, tracks, roofs, etc. We need to continue to navigate the initiatives that are coming at us at the state level, often unfunded. And also we need to continue to either maintain or increase the ending fund balance of 5 to 7% more. So those are the goals of budgeting over the next 2 years, and that work really needs to start happening by the admin team in September, October. And so you'll be hearing more about that from us coming up next year. That's the background. Celia can get more into the numbers. Any questions thus far? Or do you want to hold off till the end, or do you have questions about what I've said?
The only question I have is regarding the balancing of teachers to student numbers. What criteria are you using to determine that balance?
You use class size is one. And we've talked a lot more about that too, but like in the past, we've used class size mainly. But you also take in the other socioeconomic factors that exist. But I mean, honestly, though, I mean, that's the one thing that you can compare the best across the system, any system, is the number of students in a class.
You know, the target.
We don't, but that's part of what we need to decide. Like, what is our target number? What do we want to keep that at? There's some things that are really hard to take into consideration, like at the high school, where you have either a high-level math class, a calculus class, or you have some CTE programs that have a capstone course that has less numbers. Maybe there's 10, maybe there's 12. And that's going to bring your class sizes down. So you have to take those kind of things into consideration too. But in the end, you really do have to look at the numbers.
You had mentioned that the funding that we get is based on like one of the things is based on like the experience of the teachers and things like that. So when they are looking at the experience of the teachers that we have and lowering our funding based on that, the figure that they're determining what we would be paying that teacher, how close is it to what we are actually paying teachers?
We can't get that precise. It's just in a formula.
Okay.
So they just put it, depending on what the average number is, they put it into their formula and it spits out a number.
It's a leftover from No Child Left Behind.
Yeah.
But it's a multiplier.
Yeah.
I wonder how accurate it really is to what the wages of today are.
Yeah. Well, it can't.
I mean, I'm sure it's not as close as we need it to be with like normal state funding, but
Well, it can't be, because we pay differently than, it's not Washington where they pay the same salary. We pay differently than Crestwell, than Duane, than Eugene, than Springfield. So
Yeah.
it's not going to
That's
be accurate for
everybody
all of us anyway. So,
yeah, that's everybody in the bucket.
yeah. Other questions? Okay, Celia, I will hand the magical device to you.
I thought Jesse was.
Well,
Go me to do it.
Word backwards.
Let's just get to the end and call it. So I just wanted to briefly review the budget committee responsibilities, since it's been a while that we've had our budget line. So what the budget committee does do is you hear and see the budget message, which you're doing tonight, review and discuss the budget, which you're also doing tonight. And what you're looking at is you're just assessing the reasonableness of the budget as presented based on the budget message that, you just heard and what the budget looks like overall. And also the underlying assumptions we use to calculate revenue and expenditures, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. Listen to public input if there's any. And you are certainly able and should ask clarifying questions. If there's something you don't understand, in order to help you to assess a reasonableness, you should ask those questions. And then finally, to take action, the majority of the committee to approve the budget. And what you're approving is a maximum expenditures of appropriation for each fund type. And then also, as Jackie pointed out at the budget 101, one of the other important things you do is you approve the property tax rate. And then the recommended budget, and then recommend the budget to the budget, from the budget committee to the board. And that's what hopefully we'll do tonight. What you don't need to do is, or what is not part of your responsibility, one is you can't discuss the budget outside of a public meeting. That's public meeting laws. You're not able to change staffing levels, salary schedule, or negotiate contracts. And you're not able to adjust policies or priorities set by the board, which means you can't add, delete, increase, or decrease programs. And one thing I wanted to point out is that the school district budget is a little different than some of the other governmental entities and civic entities, in that our budget is based on district goals, and it's also follows state and federal laws, and it's based on a fund and function reporting rather than, the city does departments and higher education does departments, but we don't really have departments. And we also don't budget by building, it's by fund and by function, general fund and special funds and then the others. So what our charge is and best practice is we recommend a balanced budget, and this budget does balance. And then the ending fund balance, the OSBA recommends a 5 to 7% for school districts, the general fund, and the Government Finance Association recommends 5 to 15% reserve. And the other is to ensure alignment of the budget with the district goals and guiding principles. Wait, any questions about just basic stuff we're doing today? Okay. So some budget notes for the 24-25 year budget. So one thing we did this year is we implemented new software, and we've been talking about this. It got implemented January 1st, which is only a few months ago. And but by doing that, we were able to prepare the budget with the new software. And so that's why the budget may look a little different for you than it has in the past. One thing that we're able to do this year is to have more precise staff and benefit budgeting. And the reason we're able to do that is instead of budgeting by a staff person, or in the old system, we looked at what we budgeted before without knowing exactly what staff members were in there. And we just, okay, we know wages are going at 4%, so we'll increase it for 4%. So it was really an estimate. With this system, we can use position budgeting. So in the new system, every position has a position in the budget. So for every number, all the teachers we have a teaching position, and it's dialed down to whether you're a 5th grade teacher or a 4th grade teacher or a math teacher, and all the classified staff are also at a position. So when we do the budget, it looks at those positions and it assigns wages and benefits to each of those positions. So we can really hone in on what our true costs were. We did estimate the increase in insurance benefits, which we'll talk about that later, and some of the other staff costs. But again, it can really put that cost per position. And then the report itself just looks different. In the presentation, you can see more detailed line items. I know there were some, if you look through the budget, there are some things like HREB that had 0 last year, it has numbers this year. And again, that goes back to last year, we did well, this is what we think benefits are, and we want some of it. Whereas in this system, it will actually, line item and budget for each one of those line items. So those are some differences. And then the other thing we did, not necessarily with this new software, but we did move the aquatic center to an enterprise fund, which is Fund 500, which we'll see later. And we took it out of special fund, out of the special funds, out of the 200 funds. And we'll talk about why later. It's just more accurate. And as we go along with the new software and just as we are more precise in our coding, we continue to be aligned with state requirements and funding codes. So every year I have to upload not only our budget, but our audited actual numbers to the state, and they have a specific format that they want that in. So the budget and our reporting more aligns with the state, what the state's looking for. And another thing we did in this budget that aligns with the coding requirements is legal costs in the past have been coded in the superintendent function 2320, and they really belong in the board function 2310. So you may have seen a shift from those costs out of 2320 into 2310. And as a reminder, the budget includes budgeted figures for 23-24. But when we do the proposed budget for the 24-25 year, we look at actual expenditures that we've had through 23-24 and what we predicted to spend through the rest of the year. So sometimes when you're looking at the 23-24 budget and you're looking at what we budgeted for 24-25, it doesn't seem to make sense. And that's because we're looking at actual to actually to do the 24-25 budget. And there's a couple of areas that we'll talk about as we go through this. And then a reminder that the budget is an estimate. It's a best guess at a specific date. And for this, it was May 14th. We've already had some changes that we know about that will come up as a supplemental budget change because it changes as we go along. And it can be adjusted after adoption. And our budget was presented by President. So personnel cost, and so as part of the new reporting, you may have seen personnel listed out by different titles. And I wanted just to give an update on those in case you hadn't seen those before. So certified staff are all our teachers and other licensed staff. And we budget them at a 3.5% pay increase, which is as per their negotiated contract. Classified staff are all the non-licensed staff, so our EAs, our food service transportation, and with their new negotiated contract, the increase they get is a 0.5% between steps, which right now is anywhere between 2.4 and 2.5. So they got a 0.5% increase there. And they also receive a 4% increase in their wage as per the new negotiated contract. And then administrative staff are principals, assistant principals, and district office directors. That group gets a 3.5% pay increase as well. And then confidential staff are the district office staff, the administrative assistants, the staff in the finance and human resource departments, and that group also receives a 3.5% increase next year. Alrighty. On to general funds. General funds is the bulk of our funds, and general funds is well, we'll just go to the next slide. So the majority of our revenues in general fund are these three areas, and the assumptions we use for this year are state school funds, and it's based on it's function 3101. And it's based on the state $10.2 billion budget. We are in the second year of our biennium, which means that we know for sure that it's a $10.2 billion state budget. Next year it's a new biennium. Hopefully it goes up and not down. But we can be confident that it's a $10.2 billion. And the estimate that we received was as of March 26th. That's the most recent estimate we got from the state. And that estimate changes throughout the year. Our expectation is we should get a bump up from that, in the fall. We can take a look at some of the things that go into that funding, like, ELL students in, pregnant and parenting students. And as those numbers shift, we can increase those numbers, which will increase our state funding.
Which doesn't necessarily mean we would add anything.
No.
We would then use that to go towards our ending fund balance for next year. So that we can spread out anything that we need to do over several years.
Correct. And the final, just a little fun fact, the final amount that a school district receives is not, so we just found out what our final total amount we should have received for the 21-22 year. And they make adjustments off that. So this amount gets adjusted for, like 2 years. Hopefully it's not a lot, and the estimates are fairly accurate.
And so if you can imagine what Celia then has to do is like, we just, we had to pay $50,000 for the 21-22 school year for an adjustment. And so she's having to balance that with last year's budget and then the current budget and then next year's budget. So it gets really unique. So it's used in
Yeah.
I thought property tax was also average statewide, so that actually changes in the local district aren't necessarily direct change.
So the tax revenue we get, and that's the next one here, is the minimum that is strongly suggested to do is to do a 3% over the property tax values. And then we also discount it for, the collection rate, which we discount 5% to the collection rate. And that is based on the district's sphere of influence, the property taxes in that. So it's not the same as the state's funds.
No, I understand, but I don't even remember what it was I'm referencing, but there was something to do with how changes in the assessed rate. I'm sorry, I don't have enough to even give you some information, but I do remember thinking that there isn't a direct correlation always on that.
So like West Wind doesn't get more money than we get because their house is
Well,
not.
well, what'll happen?
There's a $5, measure, 5, there's that $5 per, 1,000 cap. And then there's the 4750 impact as well. But my understanding is there was also some averaging that was done between the districts, and I don't remember that criteria. Maybe it's just the school funds I'm thinking.
Well, and the bottom line is that just, they determine how much you need, and then they subtract out the amount of local taxes that you would get. So in the end.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. That's
So
exactly.
if they're determining your state school fund is 27 million or 35 million or
Yes,
whatever.
yeah.
If you get 9,000, then you get the remainder. If you only get 7,000, you get a couple thousand more.
Okay.
So it all balances out that way.
Thank you. That's
Yes.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's connected with the state school funds, and you subtract out local revenue, and property taxes, one of the big ones.
And you said that you increased it by 3% from the current year?
Of the assessor's valuation from 23-24, which is not necessarily,
Yeah. this
well,
is
no,
not-
because you have to look at the assessor's value, and that changes, which is not, you can't. So that means you can't look at prior year budget or the prior years and do the 3%, it's on the assessed value. And there's a whole formula that you do that.
Yeah, because she announced last night that it's a 3% increase this year for
Yeah.
taxes.
Yeah.
She announced last night in the budget meeting.
Oh, good.
So the question I had about the taxes is the number that is in here, this 23-24 adopted number, this is not current year modified numbers. This is what was adopted.
Correct,
Okay, yeah.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not actual. On actual property tax collections, we are actually gonna do a little bit better than what we budgeted, but that also plays into the 95% collection rate. If it's better than that, our actual is gonna be better than our budget.
You guys do supplementals throughout the year though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So this number is not counting for the supplementals that you've done.
We didn't, that's, yeah. So we talked about property tax, and then the other is a beginning fund balance, and that is established at the time the proposed budget is prepared by estimating actual revenues, collected minus expenditures, through June of 2024. So that can change a little because again, what we're looking at when we do the 24-25 budget are actuals, and what you're seeing on your report is the budget from 23-24. So those are the major areas of revenues in the general fund.
With your new program that you have, is it possible for it to give us the current year modified budget rather than the adopted budget?
Well, it's not done yet.
It would,
No, but you have a modified budget because it's got supplementals in it, so it's not this number, it's whatever you modified it with the supplement.
Right, but yes,
So I mean, so is it possible that instead of giving us the adopted number, since that's not the number anymore, that you can give us the number that is after the supplemental such included?
but we didn't do a supplemental for tax revenue.
No, I'm just
Right,
talking in
yes,
general.
yes, it does. So what you're seeing in there is our includes in supplementals. that we did.
Okay, so this is not the adopted number, it's the modified number.
Yes,
Thank you.
well, so budget law is gonna require that first column on the other side has to be the budgeted numbers from the previous year. I've seen jurisdictions add a pro forma line where they estimating where you're at.
No, it can be the current year modified budget, not actual modified budget, which is after
I didn't
supplementals.
argue about it, but.
Yeah. We do it with the county and the city does it.
Thank you.
Okay, no, that was my question is this, yeah, perfect, thank you.
okay, so our reserves, and this is what Brian was talking about, the 5 to 7%. So our goal is 5 to 7% of general operating revenues, which excludes beginning fund balance. So it's all the other stuff minus beginning fund balance. The budget that is presented includes a budget reserve of 5.02%. So we're squeaking in at 5%. Last year we did a 5.8%. So we are using some of the budget reserve to balance this year's budget, as Brian mentioned. So reserves are on pages 92 through 94 of the budget. The contingency funds, which is function 6110, is $500,000. These are expenditures. This contingency funds can't are there for expenditures that we can't foresee. And it can be transferred or used only with low people, and it is part of the reserve calculation. This amount has fluctuated in years. Last year, we budgeted 150,000 and have not used it. In prior years, we budgeted as much as 750,000 and have not used it. And in years prior to that, we budgeted 0, and obviously we did not use that. So that number is an estimate, and it can change, but it is part of our reserve. And so the difference to make up the 5% is the unappropriated ending fund balance, which is function 7,000. And that is not available to be used unless, I don't know, the world blows up and falls apart. It is really meant to be set aside to use to balance next year's budget and the next, so the 25-26 year budget, and to balance that budget and to use it for expenditures that year. That really cannot be spent. So once you approve the budget at those two reserve levels, the 1.3 million can't be used, but the 500,000.
We're optimistic that with other things that we're watching, that the 5.02% will go up.
With the budget as it is,
Yeah.
we're guaranteeing 5, but we're just hoping that it increases. So why do we have reserves? It limits our current and future risks associated with shortfalls. For example, we knew we'd have an ice cream again, and we had to spend some money. Fortunately, we had the money to spend, and we have recovered most of that cost, or a large part of that cost of insurance claims. But sometimes things happen that you don't have insurance claims. We've had, in my opinion, a lot of unfunded mandates coming down from the state. But now what do we do? So that's why we have reserves, and it also allows for stabilization and sustainability programs.
Celia, do you guys know or keep track of like with the unfunded mandates, because that's sadly a norm. How much are you guys paying out for unfunded mandates?
I don't think there's a way we could do that, because so many of them are, like, there's curriculum unfunded mandates, like, they just come from so many different things.
Right.
I don't know that we can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
So that 1.37 plus the 500,000 adds up to 5% of general fund.
General fund
5.2.
minus the
Beginning.
allowance, yeah. So some general fund expenditures, and this, some of this is repeated from what Brian said. And we did restore cuts from building budgets last year. We reduced building budgets, which what that means is buildings have some discretionary funds they can use for all kinds of things within their buildings, and we cut those across the board last year 10%, and we restored those. We also had some staff move into general fund because we had decreases in special fund, especially title, and some small 0.5 FTE from ESSER that we moved to general fund. As a note, staff FTE are moved throughout the year as funding changes. As I mentioned, we just found out we're getting state funding that we're going to be able to move staff out of general fund that will be funded through the state, so we would do that. The superintendent search will have some impact on the budget, so we did budget some funds for consulting for that search next year. And our special education, the SPED, we have our outside placements. You may have noticed that that cost had gone up. And talking with Chad, the number of students that we budgeted for was underestimated last year. And so looking at this year's budget, well, Chad, why don't you talk about that?
Sure. Celia is referring to specifically our students are, excuse me, what the state refers to as high cost students. And those are students that their education supports cost more than $30,000. And we have had an increase of high cost students over the past couple of years of about 12 students. So if you look, just with 10 students, that's about $300,000 extra.
So that's been going on for years, hasn't it?
It has. I was actually looking, I've been tracking it since 2009. So quite a while. Yeah, and back then we had 10 students, and now we're up to 48 students that require support. So
Is our school district special in that way?
No.
No, not at all.
It's going up across the state.
Yeah.
And then the other are our charter school rates. You may have noticed that those went up fairly significantly. So the charter school rates are based from the state school funding calculation that is made at the state level. We have no control over that calculation. And the one thing that's different about the charter school calculation is the state uses a current year AD&W. Not for us, they look at this year's and last year's, and whichever is higher they use for us. But for the charter school, they look at current year and that's what they use, which seems crazy, but as the AD&W goes down, the charter school rate goes up. So what's happening is, as our estimated enrollment for 24-25 is down some, which bumped the charter school rate up to $12,238. The 24-25 rate, so next year's rate reflects an increase of almost $2,000 from the 23-24 estimate. Now, as I mentioned before, in the fall, we can go back into the state school fund estimates and change like our ELL students and SPED students. That will increase our AD&W, which will increase our rate and decrease the charter rate. So the rate will change if our current AD&W changes.
How much does the enrollment change
Approximately 100 students, 105
from the current year to next year?
last year, this year.
Right. Wow.
And what's the public school ADMW rate?
10,300 and something,
Yeah,
380, I think.
yeah.
What's the SLSD student count?
Can't get to it right now because I'm doing this presentation.
2,500.
It's, no.
It's 20.
It depends on how you count it. It's in the, it is if you're counting the charters, it's 25 something.
Not the trouble with your Saj. We saw 100 leave. I'm curious what percentage
20,
it was.
22 something.
You know why? So down, I mean,
It's happening across the state.
Across the country.
And nation.
yeah, no, but I mean, are they like moving to charter school to? Public, I mean, you're
We
like,
don't always know.
okay.
We'll get records requests from some and we don't get
And
records
so-
requests from others.
Couldn't some of that also be the available housing in the area? I mean, house goes really low, available housing.
It could be. I mean, it's also a national trend, so it's not, I mean, I don't think we can attribute it all to that, but I mean, definitely could play a part. We don't always get to know why people leave. They're there one day, the kid's gone the next.
But it's statewide, nationwide.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we've actually, over the past 3 or 4 years, haven't seen that such a decline as other school districts have. And you saw that graph, but then this last year it caught up with us.
And this may be a dumb question, I'm sorry, which schools are the charters?
Causeway Charter and East Charter.
Thank you. And even ACE has got their down too.
No, charter schools have remained fairly
Oh, okay.
fairly consistent.
I'm sorry, I thought you said that their enrollment was down, that's why
No, not ACE.
their money went up.
They're not.
No, our enrollment.
Oh.
Because their rate is based on our,
Our-
yeah, yeah,
Gotcha, I'm sorry.
That's
Oh,
okay.
that's a whole complex thing. It's-
yeah.
Gotcha, so they don't narrow it down to what are the enrollment in charter school, it's as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our ADMW,
Okay,
which is our ADM plus the weighting that they give us based on special education students, ELL students, et cetera. Students in poverty,
no, thank you.
And ADMW stands for,
ADM weighted.
yeah, average daily membership. Yeah. Took me a while to learn it. Why is that? Okay. So just some other notes, when you're, while you were looking through the budget, you may have noticed some, other, differences. One is a migrant in education. In the 23-24 budget, we included a 0.75 FTE in general fund. Our actual costs were paid through special funds, and the 24-25 budget continues this FTE in our special fund. So if you're looking for that in the general fund, yep, it's not there, and we didn't spend any, but it's in special funds. We didn't get rid of the program. And then other student transportation, and this is one of those areas where we can be more precise and consistent with our coding. The other student transportation is cost for athletic trips, which is also a non-reimbursable transportation cost. And so it has to be reported differently than transporting students to school. But the correct coding is that it belongs in athletics. So when we budgeted for this transportation, it's in the athletic fund and the special funds.
Is it called out in the athletic fund or is it just part of it?
It's in athletics, it's in the athletics fund as transportation. Any other questions about general funds? They're general.
Are we going to go through some of the general fund things, or you're just doing a broad overview, and can we ask questions about it as a whole?
You can ask questions, yeah, if you have questions about it.
Okay, so one of the ones that I had noticed that I just had a question about, and I'm sure it's just a glitch and stuff, but you have we had no money in, I think you guys, maybe you refer to it, but the AF Health Savings Account.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I don't know the things on it, 4 maybe? This is the first one I looked at. But it went from like, you know, we had money in a couple years and then it went zero and now we have money. Is there like a movement or?
No, that is part of the, what happened with the funding and doing it by position, is that it looked at the
Okay, this
position.
is just the breakout of.
Yeah, and this is just more detailed of, what it is, so that's one of those differences you'll see, and there are other things in there, in the budget that you'll see like that,
Like
and it's very
officer.
deep, yes, yeah,
Employee contribution.
yeah,
Those kind of things, it's just breaking it out.
yeah, these are just more detailed.
Thank you.
So actually, that was what I was mentioning to you, Brian, is it looked like the employer contribution was now rolling over to that. Is that, because that number's down pretty consistently from every fund.
So, the PERS is a little different because we have two PERS bonds. One is 2003 and the other one it was more recently, which was 2020. 2022, yeah, yes, the end of 2022. And those bonds, so the district matches or pays into PERS a certain percentage for staff. But because we have those bonds, the earnings off those bonds offset what we have to pay in PERS. So what we do is, there's two line items on there. There's the employer contribution and the OPSERT. Those two combined percentages are what we calculate that we'll need to pay down those bonds. So those percentages can change some depending on where we are with the payment numbers. Yeah, and we'll talk about those a little more when we get down to the 300s.
So page 4 was the one I was looking at the top. Where the very top line, license salary, looks like we're going up 3 FTE, but somehow saving a little over 400,000.
And that goes along with the more precise funding because we did it by position. And sometimes if we had staff retiring out of a position that were like step 10, and we know that a new staff person is not going to be step 10, we budgeted at a lower rate. And some of that comes in there. And again, it was when we did budgeting last year, it was not as necessarily precise as we did this year. And also looking at actual, it more aligns with our actual.
On page 14. What? This looks like it's kind of new, this high school extracurricular. What is that for? It's a small, tiny amount, but I was just curious.
Yeah, and that goes along with being more accurate in our funding. So extracurricular is anything that's not in the classroom kind of a thing. And it's just regular budgeting that's outside of specific classroom items.
Okay. And then same thing for 22. I don't know what Title 1A/B is. What's
okay, and that was, so Title 1A is our title funds and they did decrease for 24-25, so that staff person, they are still providing title services, so they have to be funded as a title, that function code, but they're now being paid out of general fund.
okay, so it's just a shift, it's just a movement. Okay, it's a shift. They haven't had a budget in there. Is the on page 28, the reduction in the subs for English as a second language, is that just shifting or do you not have, you don't have subs?
That's shifting, yeah.
Okay, page 32, what's the attendance and social? No budget for the last several years and we've got a budget. Just shifting out of somewhere else, or is it new funding?
The attendance
And social work?
Yes, that's not necessarily shifting, that's being more precise with the function code. Somebody maybe out of a 111 or a 22 to the, yeah.
Thank you. What is district paid TSA?
That is, the district pays, for some staff,
A tax sheltered annuity,
yes, thank you.
I'm like,
Yes,
it's like a 403B or whatever. That's just by contract for certain employees.
maybe we're gonna get to know TSA. The airport
Yeah.
security. Pre-check.
Don't like TSA.
Yeah, pre-check. On that same page, what is, looks like it's 318, costs and costs non-instructional staffing. It went from 0 to 50,000. What's that?
What page is that on?
56. It was like 1,500 one year, 2,200 one year, 0 in the current year, and then 50,000 in the
That's the 310 professional technical services.
318.
Page below that.
318. Yeah.
oh, yeah, that is in, Yvonne's budget, and that is part of what is, budgeted for the consultation for superintendent.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Good guess.
He had it.
You want to say something about it? You already did. Oh. On page 79, is that a summary? I can't tell if it's just a summary of, or if it's. Because it goes from 0 for several years in classified salary to a budget this year. On 79, it's the very first line.
You know, staff, so that's in staff services, that's that function.
Okay.
And that is, that is actually a movement of staff because we had, if you notice, we had, more staff in the managerial 113 and it's moved to 112, which is a more accurate, reflection of, the position.
You must be really loving your new stuff. That's all these nice things.
And it can even do more next year as the years move on and we use it, it'll be really nice because things will be much more comparable.
That's nice. That's all. Thank you.
Oh, okay, great. Anything else?
You answered a bunch of the other ones, so you're good.
Alrighty, so on to special funds. So major funding and special funds. So in this report, all our special funds are rolled up into Fund 200. So we took all those that we have, we got a one sheet of all the special funds we have, and those are all rolled up into the Fund 200, rather than looking at each fund by itself. We do this because it does follow our state reporting requirements, but it does mean that all the special funds are shown together. It's also less looking through a 500 pages view. A couple of things on this is, again, along with our coding, to be more precise and following the state reporting requirements, there is a page in there where function 1141 doesn't have anything else except this year. It's also called undesignated, and that's an anomalous. Yeah, one of those. That's how did that slip in? So function 1141 is for preschool, and it should not be undesignated. It should say preschool, and I just need to go in and change the description to preschool. And once I do that, it will flow in with all the 1141. So that's why it's sitting up there looking weird all by itself. The other is function 2490, which is other school administration. That's on page 125. That reflects funding for our preschool promise supervisor, and it's just more accurate reporting of where this staff person is. It shows up in the budget and the funding code. Prior, they were I believe it was showing up with administrators, but administrators are in buildings and the preschool promise is just different. And it also flows along better with how the preschool promise funds wants their stuff to be shown. And then the ending fund balance, there was a question about should the 22-23 ending fund balance match the beginning 23-24? Well, yes, but no. So it doesn't because the 22-23 is actual. And that number is not really known until the audit is completed. And when we do the budget, we don't have the audit completed yet. So those don't match, but the 21-22 income should match the 22-23 beginning.
So are we asking questions now on the 200? Oh, no, you're still talking, I'm sorry. No.
No, Mike, not for you.
So as I've got to leave in about 15 minutes. I only have two questions on the entire budget and 200, so I can wait for.
If you want to ask them now, go right ahead.
That would be great. So on page 109, under there's an athletic duty pay under 1123-133, and it's like 90 some thousand. My glasses on back there. That was actually one of them, and then the other one, which I think Brian answered, was on page 133. It was building acquisition, but I think that's actually a roof. It's a roof.
Yes.
A 350, right?
Yes. So on page 109, what is it?
It's line 133 under 1122. It says athletic duty pay. And there is a very small amount of money back in 21-22, but a rather large $8,000 jump.
And I have an answer for you. So in the past, so that's the middle school athletic coaches. And in the past, we've coded those under high school. We just put everything under high school. Now we're pulling it out to middle school. So that's why you see that there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Why don't we have the value that under high school?
For
Well, because we have high school numbers.
Which page, Darby?
Same page.
Okay.
Because in high school, we do have athletic duty pay as 0. What's that one?
I see it under function 1132.
Yeah. And that's specifically athletic duty, yeah, yeah.
Or 110.
So it's under extracurricular instead of programs. Okay.
Well, if you look on page 110, there, under 1132, athletic duty pay, there is for yeah. So okay, so
That's
special
down significantly because we moved a bunch of it to middle school.
So on special funds, I just wanted to pull out some of the larger ones. The integrated guidance includes these 4 funds, same as last year. The fund changed on a couple of them. And the dollar amounts that are included in the 200 roll up the revenues. These are the total amounts. And Brian, I think the funding amounts are about the same except for fund 202 amounts. Is that correct?
Yeah, and they haven't given us, they give us some preliminary numbers, so we put those in there, but they haven't given us final. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down.
So those are all in there. But I will say that the special funds are where we are able to meet our mission, vision, goals, because this is where like our CTE comes from. This is where you saw that panorama survey, that's where this comes from. So a lot of that is met through our special funds. And then the ELC, the early learning community, these are also aligned with what we talked about last year, preschool promise. We did get a bump in there because we had a school that they added 7 more students to. So they also paid for transportation and 16 staff members. the community care and coordination, that is now that 310,000 we talked about earlier is coming, from the state to continue funding three people. Little Lions Preschool is something new that we added on. And that is, it's the nursery, it's housed at the high school for, pregnant and parenting teens, as well as staff members, can have their children there. And, it's full, we have a supervisor and 2 staff people. That is funded, also through Latinx and through Peggy's primary care as well. And then the Child Equity Fund supports 9 staff members, and Latinx helps support the preschool and then the preschool programs. And that's all in the, included in the 200 fund. And what's also included in there is ESSER. We are at the end of ESSER. We're anticipating having $700,000 next year to use. That will all be used by, the precise date is 9/20/24. We're going to fund summer school, help fund summer school with it. The $350,000 is a new roof on the local middle school gym that has been approved by the state to use. And continued support, we're going to fill some of the gap for technology and curriculum, and it will all be gone by September 20th. So party's over.
Steve.
Yeah, indeed. We were smart though, in my opinion, with our ESSER funds. There are other districts who funded a bunch of staff. They did pay increases with it and stipends, and now that's why we have some school districts that are laying on staff. We didn't do that, and we were smart in using it. So this is our last round. And then the title funds, we have title funds in IDEA. This is the Title 1A. All of these funds dropped a little bit this year, but this is what they serve, and these are the same as last year, except for the funding, and the FTE decreased a little bit, and that's where again you see the Title 1 over in general fund because we had to move some staff there. Tad, do you have anything to add for these? So other major special funds, food service is large. It's almost a $2 million budget. That's our school nutrition program. There's approximately 25 classified staff and office staff and a supervisor. The dental clinic, we're budgeting to spend $94,000. That's mostly staff costs. All the dentists do volunteer work. And they should be in there by the end of July, I hear. We'll see. Should be complete. Technology is a little over $500,000. That's funded through general fund transfer and ESSER funds. Athletics, a little over $600,000. It includes a $425,000 general fund transfer. And then our bus replacement, that is just the lease payments we have on the buses. Any questions about special revenue funds? Anything else?
I have a couple.
Okay.
On 121 under the dental services, this salary is about the same, but it went from 1 FTE to none. But you've got a salary number.
Oh, well, that is.
I'm assuming you saw the person there.
We're just gonna, everybody. Yes, we do, and that I need to change because we do, oh, and I know why that is. Yes, we do have a half-time office coordinator, and then we have a dental assistant and a half-time dental assistant as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
we're
that didn't
still at
be
one.
on, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that didn't change.
Okay.
Good catch, Jennifer.
And then on 127, what you've got the non-reimbursable student transfer. We were 0 this year, and now I think that's 80,800 in the upcoming year. What did we not have this year that we're going to have next year? We've been having it kind of regularly, and then we had a drop off this year. It's 332.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
25.
Yes. Yeah. So that's not staffing, that's professional services, and that would be part of their, camera system and things are buying, I believe, because we're putting new cameras in the buses. So that's kind of a one-time,
Okay,
yeah.
so then the $73,084, that's in 564 for the bus improvements. That wouldn't be, I mean, is that, what other improvement are they doing?
You mean the 22-23 academics?
No.
4550 last.
Yeah, and 2550,
564, the last line.
564, is that the cameras? Because 33.2 would be camera systems if that's non-reimbursable student transfer.
What 73 is the campus student.
73 would be the cameras, but what's the 80,000?
What page, where you want?
127 and 2550 under student transportation. We've got a $80,000 number and a $73,000 number.
332, 564.
Yeah, the 73 is the,
Is the camera. So then what's the 80? It's just like when we transport people, we can't get paid back for it kind of thing.
that is. Oh, that's the preschool promise. Oh, yes, because that is non-reimbursable because we're already getting paid for it, so we can't include that. I guess, yeah.
Okay. And then I might hit my last one, which was the roof.
Okay. The roof was popular.
Yeah, it just kind of appears out of there, and you're like, wait, what's that? You bought a building? A little building.
That one's 133.
133. That's the parent.
I wish we could buy a little building for 300.
It's a sheet in that back.
That's the roof.
And you said it's the gym, right?
The gym at Lincoln Middle School.
How old's the roof on the building?
Oh, they've been patching it for a long time. They keep patching it.
You mean
more.
which section is old? And
Yeah.
They do actually do it in sections, so that's why the main building has been done.
Okay.
More recently than the gym,
Okay.
and we just can't patch the gym anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so all of our other funds, which aren't many.
Oh, I had one more quick one.
Alrighty,
Page 159, under the pool.
yes.
So,
159?
159. So just the top two lines, for the last few years, we've had fees of 100 and something.
Yeah.
And this year we have a 0 there, and then we have 115 pool activities. Is that a redesignation
Yep.
or?
Actually, we're gonna get to that because that's not in 200, that's in 500.
Oh, so it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alrighty, thank you, Taylor. We're moving on to the next one. So, the 300 funds are our service funds, and 300 is our general obligation bond fund. The maturity date is 6/15/2025. It's coming up. We have a QZAP bond, and that one is funded, well, the GEO bond is funded through property taxes, and that's that property tax you need to approve as part of the budget. The QZAP bonds are funded through general fund transfer, and that one, the payment on it is $134,000. There's two parts to that. The bond itself was paid off, and now we have a sinking fund payment that is $134,000 a year. Maturity date is 2029. The second general obligation bond is also funded through property tax, and that matures in 2041. And I believe that must be the Harrison. Yeah, and the other one is the high school. The new high school that is 20 years old.
Yeah. Which one is the high school, the 141 or
the 300, the fund 300.
Oh, so 130, page 130. Okay.
Yeah. And then the two PERS bonds we have, those the one matures in 2028 and the second one matures in 2042, and those help offset our first cost.
Do you think you guys will go after another one once you pay off the 2028?
That's a really good
If
question.
the option is there and the rates are good and all the other things go along with it.
It depends on whatever, and we used, Carol Samuels helps us a lot with that.
Yeah.
Do you know Carol? If
I think
Carol,
everybody in Gowing knows Carol.
if Carol suggested, we will
Run with
consider
it.
it.
The last time we talked to her, she said it was gonna be, I don't know, 5 or 6 years before we had one of those
Yeah,
tapering off opportunities.
yeah, it'll be a bit, so.
If it retires, it's gonna be.
Oh, yeah, that will be good.
No.
So the next is our capital projects funds, which are 400. We have two. One is CET, not CTE. And this is for our capital projects, and that we receive revenue through the excise tax through the city. And then the 400, which is our capital plus, this is the budget that Matt manages. We are doing a general fund transfer, 310,000, that funds our major maintenance projects. And there was an increase in cost there. When I talked to Matt, property services increases due to, we have expanded alarm systems, cameras, and just the cost in services and materials. And the other thing that's in there, which is a one-time thing, is Garena has a covered play structure that we're moving forward on, and it is grant funded, so the grant income will come into this, and then it'll be expended for there. So that's running through them. And then the pool used to be in Fund 200. It's now in Fund 500. And the reason that we moved it to 500 is the 500 funds are enterprise funds, and enterprise funds are things that are operated like a business. And the pool is actually operated by a business, like a business. It's owned by the school district. But the district is doing a general fund transfer of $75,000. The city helps support it, but most of the revenue comes from memberships and rentals. $153,000 of it comes from that, and it needs to run like a business. And we did change the revenue account. It used to be 1740, but 1740, the function 1740 is for fees that we charge to students for student stuff. But what we're charging at the pool is community stuff. And that function 1810 fits with what we're doing as an enterprise fund for community, that type of revenue. 1810. And the pool has 3 FTEs, so 3 regularly scheduled 12-month employees, plus lifeguards and swim instructors. And most of the lifeguards are students, but this year we've had an influx of adults as well, and we give lifeguard training and all that kind of stuff. So we're moving along with that.
Question, how is the student? So the enterprise fund would be I'm assuming the community swim portion. How is it paid for the students in the school?
The students in the school, so when the students go over to the swim lessons, there's no charge.
Yeah, there's class.
That's where the general fund transfer kind of helps fund that. The school funds that piece of it.
That'll be on the pool's insurance.
If you want to learn more about the pool, Shane was on the radio, can be it's recorded, so you can learn about the pool. Mike?
I'm wearing multiple hats in this room, and so I'm just curious, because we're facing, the city of Cottage Grove is facing some real budgetary challenges, and this is one of those items that came up as a possible cut. Because we've laid some positions off, unfortunately, and so no, I'm just curious.
What was that? Is that 50 still a year?
No, it's 75.
75. Was that double 1 year or something like that?
It's gone up.
History of
I
that.
think originally the first one was like 25, and then it stayed at 50 for quite a while.
And the other part that you don't see here is some of the maintenance that goes on actually goes through the maintenance budget. Like we've had some pump repair, well, We've had some pump repairs, we've had some of those things that actually got funded through Matt's budget. So depending on where that is, if it's a larger thing, it would go through that. So the district, supports it in that as well.
Utilities and custodial and all that come through 500, or they go through the?
No, so custodial, they do their own, so the staff there are doing their own custodial. But yes, the utilities and everything goes through general fund. So there is part of that goes.
So the school is.
So, yeah, the school is giving the 75 plus thing for that kind of stuff.
And that's kind of what I was asking, is this just the enterprise portion of?
Yeah.
that budget?
When we host events, like even from other schools or things, they pay, I mean.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
I apologize, folks, I have to go.
Thank you, Mike.
So wait, Mike, I want you to know that this really should be called a community pool, because that's what we're here for, supporting the community, but don't talk now. I mean, we have saved lives with this pool, much more than your 75,000 that the city gives, which we're very much appreciative. But what our pool does for the city of Cottage Grove is huge. And I want you to take that in consideration when you sit on your other hat.
Well, when they took out the therapy pool, the community center, and put it at
Yeah.
and if you have time during the day, go up to that pool and see how much that therapy pool is used. I mean, there's not too many times in the morning you can go in there and there's not 15 or 20 people in there. So it is, and everybody there is older than me and I'm old. So it's being used by our seniors in a therapeutical way.
And now we haven't always done this, but now every student, every grade level, every year gets lessons versus, remember when it was every other year, you do like first, third, fifth, and seventh or whatever, every grade.
And when we put the therapy pool in, the city worked with us to do that because it was causing so much erosion down the community center and you
Right.
expanded.
And that's where it went up to 75. from
Yeah.
50.
And we actually gave you a big chunk of money towards the capital.
Yeah, it was.
Us. But no, this isn't a matter of whether it's a value or not, it's about priorities, if I'm cutting a police officer versus keeping the library open, if I'm, I mean, this is about priorities, just like you in your budget are
This is
looking
a
at.
big priority. I mean,
Well, I
one life,
I don't disagree. But it's good to know that there's not more than just the other fees going into support.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys.
Thanks, Mike.
No, I'm fine, totally. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, the last, I think it's my last slide, trust and agency funds. So these funds are used to account for assets that the district holds as a trustee or agents. And we basically have three. We have a nursing fund, and Chad, do you know how that fund came about? We have a little bit of money.
Sorry, donations. For little one?
Yeah.
$5,000.
Yeah, okay.
People give money and say, please use this for little kids that need it.
Okay.
You guys last.
Okay, perfect. And then our scholarship fund, and that's one that it used to have a much bigger balance. But this fiscal year, we transferred a little over $300,000 out of that scholarship fund from specific named donations to the scholarship fund into the Cottage Grove Community Foundation, so they can manage it, they can earn more money, and that's where that went. So the fund is actually about 30,000, I think now, and that scholarship fund is managed by us.
The transferring it to the Cottage Grove Foundation is great. Do you intend to move it all and just take it all out of here so you don't have to handle any of it? Or does some of it have to stay, or?
So some of it stayed because the balances are so low that it doesn't really make sense to transfer.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's like 4 or 5 in there that are just rooms.
Yeah.
But we transferred over the bigger ones. Yeah. And then the Portland Trust, is around 56,000.
Do you think you'll move that one too and let them do it?
That's a good question. Yeah.
See why we wouldn't, but
Yeah.
have to take it out.
Yeah.
We do a
Well,
good job.
it's actually, it's up to Perkins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a fund that we don't spend money out of that without talking with them.
And that's with the scholarship fund, it sat, that money sat in that fund for a long time. Because Vicki Evans at the high school works with those funds and she knows the donors and she will talk to them every year. Hey, do you want to do this? And they really wanted it to stay to school, but she finally was able to convince them that it was a better idea to move it. And so, you know, we moved it with their position, permission, and the foundation adheres to the requirements of the students, yeah, and they are does that, and it's,
They do a great job.
And we bring all the counselors in to help, you know,
Yeah.
selection, so it's, the high school is very.
so we were not sad to have to have that move.
It's a lot of work to
Yeah,
to go through the process of the scholarships and pick somebody and go, well, you know,
and
so turning over is.
and then the accounting for it, and you know, and if we earn more money, then
Yeah.
then that's what it's all about. So, are there any other questions about whatever we've talked about? Righty.
I think this has been a really good presentation.
Oh, thank you, Sherry.
Very good.
Definitely spirited.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
thank you.
very good.
Okay. Do we have any public comment? So. So next steps. So thank you everybody for looking through this and spending your time looking at it and questions to get clarification on these departments. And I look forward to using the new system and having more clarity with the budget and making it more comparable as we move forward. Years to come.
Back to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so public input member, but does anybody else have anything else before we move to the motion? Okay. Why just raise your writing to have somebody else?
I think you asked for a second.
Yes. Do I have a motion?
I would love to make a motion. Thank you for asking. Do I need to read out the individual numbers or can I refer to? Okay, I'll read that. I move the South Plains School District 45J3 Budget Committee approve the proposed 2024-25 budget appropriations as outlined below in the aggregate amount of $65,639,524. General Fund, $40,535,602. Special Revenue Funds, $15,493,003. Debt Service Funds, $8,246,242. Capital Projects Funds, $859,910. Enterprise Funds, $404,407. Preston Agency Funds, $100,360, for a total of $65,639,524. And to approve imposition of the 2024-25 permanent property tax rate subject to the limitation of Measure 5 in the amount of $4.7532 per $1,000 of assessed value for operating purposes in the general fund, and to approve the imposition of a 2024-25 property tax levy for general obligation bonded debt in the amount of $3,303,750, which is excluded from the limitation of Measure 5. Second.
Didn't get that. All those in favor? Any opposed? And passes. Yay. Back over to you when I'm done.
All right, yeah, so that's a break. Thank you, Budget Committee members. You may go home. Board members, you may not. You guys can So this is our strategizing for the superintendent search process. Reminder, we cannot talk about salary. We cannot talk about people that we might consider for the position. This is really about the process.
Well, is the main thing for the interim tonight, Bill? This is the main thing tonight. Is what we're gonna do.
Yeah, mainly for the interim search. I mean, I'm presuming that we're doing an interim search and a permanent search. Because I don't think it would be possible to get a permanent in the time frame, basically. So presuming that the rest of the board sees it that way, we're talking about both. But mostly it's the interim search, because that's the one we really need to get going on. I had it in my head that it would be like when we were first came up that we might need to do this. Like if we could get somebody by the end of this school year, but I think that would be an extremely ambitious timeline. And so then my thinking was that, well, if we didn't get it for the end of this year, then we have until the beginning of next year. And when I said that, Brian gave me a look like I handed him something with a lit fuse. So we need to do it sooner than that.
So have we looked internally? Is there someone we think internally?
That's
Because as I
part of the
remember,
discussion.
last search was kind of.
Right, well, the last search we did was, and actually Tanya passed out the timeline for the last search. We declared the vacancy on 11/4/19. We are going to need to declare a vacancy for this position, right? Because we didn't do that at the last meeting. And we can declare the vacancy effective June 30th, which is when it will be. And yeah, we got Yvonne as an interim on like a 3-week timeline. I guess this looks like 4 weeks total.
We got Larry first.
Yeah, I
Right.
gave samples of both, the 2018 and then also the 2000.
Yeah, and the Larry timeline was about 2 months. We started March 8th and then approved the interim superintendent on May 7th. So that was right about 2 months. So I spoke to Vince from OSBA and he thinks that it could be done in a month or so. Pretty reasonably to go through the whole process. So the main things for us to decide tonight are the scope. Like, do we want to just do internal candidates? Do we want to do statewide search? Do we want to do what I call a Rolodex, which is kind of how we got it on, which is basically, who we amongst ourselves know that would be qualified and interested in applying for the position.
For internal.
Yeah.
For the interim, yes.
For a year.
Right. We also, and I didn't realize this because Nancy had said that we needed to have the public input on the Q&Qs before we could talk about any candidates. And I took that to mean survey the public and then synthesize the Q&Qs from there.
Are we talking about for the permanent position?
No, for the interim, we still have to have the Q&Q, qualities and qualifications discussion before we can talk about any candidates. And I thought that we would have to survey the public and then put that together, but that is not the case. We can put together a tentative list of qualities and qualifications. We could potentially even do that this evening. And then we need to seek public input on that list before we can contact and or talk about candidates. So I'm hoping we can get the Q&Qs put together or pretty close to that.
Were these Q&Qs something that were that were brought in, or were these developed by the board in 2019? Do you know?
Which one? This one? Okay.
Those are the ones, those are actually revision 4 that you're looking at. that you have in your hand. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and those we had, the short one that you have. Can I get yours?
This one here with the line on the bottom of it.
Yeah, so that was draft 1,
Okay.
and then we went up to a draft 4.
And that was draft 4.
Mhm.
Thank you.
These are really good though.
So, for the permanent search, well, actually, we did the Q and Qs for both. At the same time, and that we did put like a community survey out, and we had a group of people. That came in and gave input on the tentative list of Q and Qs, and that's how we got to the 4 revisions. I'm suggesting, since we're trying to get, since time is a concern for the interim, that we could probably, with the list of prior Q and Qs, and Vince suggested that we could just basically adopt this policy CBA as the Q and Qs, and that would suffice. So we could do either of those or some combination of those this evening, so we can see public input at the next availability.
As we was pulling up the CB policy CBA, it looked like a lot of those performance and responsibilities were ones that we had adopted on our Q and Q. So to answer, Duane's question, whenever he asked, are these, standard ones? It looked like possibly.
There's a lot of overlap for sure.
Yeah.
So scope, the Q and Qs, and then also at least a tentative timeline for selecting our interim superintendent.
You have internal there? You have internal on your list?
Well, that's one of the possibilities for scope.
Because I think that's a discussion we have to have is, do we have someone internally that we think we could use? It would save us cost, because we wouldn't have to hire an outside consultant. And it would be somebody that already knows the district, so.
Right, yeah, I would say cost and time. Vince did say that OSBA maintains a list of people who would be qualified and potentially interested in interim positions. And that if we as a board are willing to reach out to those people, then we can have the list for free. And also that Vince said he doesn't have to bill for his hours either if we're doing most of the legwork. So that's.
We haven't even had discussing who's gonna hire.
Right, so that's an interesting notion.
So on this list is always the retired superintendents, correct?
I think that's mostly who's on there. I haven't seen the list yet because I wanted to talk to you guys first about it, but that's.
Well, I'm sure I have the most experience in this. And there was one year when we was between superintendents, Jenny was out and we didn't have time to hire somebody else. We must have had 4 or 5 interim superintendents, and they were all good, but it always takes time to get to know the district, to get to know the staff. And they were great as far as they were all retired. They were all from the Portland area, as I remember it. So then they had to come down. And a lot of times, that's a cost to us too. So I don't know.
Okay.
My experience, yeah.
So this is for 1 year.
Yeah.
So ideally, although when we hired Larry, we hired him for a year, and actually I thought maybe Tammy or Sherry would remember why, because I don't remember why we extended him for a second year.
Part of it was the search was obviously gonna take longer to
Because of the timing.
yeah.
Okay.
And
What about the timing?
Was the time.
Yeah, because that was pre-COVID.
Right, yeah, it was just.
yeah, but you have to start formulating all the questions that you want to ask and get community input. ideally, you wanna start that almost a year ahead of time.
Mhm.
Cause you're gonna try and sign on the dotted line in February or March.
Yeah, right.
So,
It was kind of a situation like what we're in right now.
yeah,
Krista was gone July 1st and somebody came in as interim.
thank you. But, I just personally feel we're in much more solid shape this time, so I think it will be easier for someone to step in
Mhm.
and be an interim. I don't think it'll be as challenging. So,
Yeah, a thing that we had going on when Krista left was that the rest of our administrators weren't new, but they were new in their positions. And so we felt that that really really made it important that we choose an interim who had superintendent experience. As opposed to taking, an assistant superintendent or somebody who was looking up.
And for Larry, I mean, he was the ESD soup, so he knew the county, he
Right,
knew the other personalities, and so he was able to, step right in.
So we have to declare the vacancy tonight.
we do.
So we should, so can someone make a motion to declare vacancy? Is that what
Yeah, that, we can do that anytime.
Make a motion, we declare a vacancy, declare our superintendent position vacant as of July 1, maybe July 1,
Yes.
2024.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, okay, so that's done. So we'll get some business done. And so I think next probably is to talk about who, if anybody, we want to help us with the interim search. And then the scope, like how do we want to just look internally, internal Rolodex, do we want to do a broader search than that? And so, yeah,
I like the looking for anybody at first. Obviously, that's going to be the cheapest and probably more timely way.
And if we were to hire someone internally, I still think that that we'd have to have someone to help that person. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, that does bring up an important point, is that this office has been running down a person since late February.
Yeah.
And if we were to decide that we were only looking internally, then without talking about who might apply for the position, we would know that we would need an extra person in this office. So that would green light the district office to get another administrator in here for next year. So.
And I guess that would be a question of the directors, because they're the ones that have been picking up all the extra work. That we would need an extra person if we took someone from this office, is that correct?
Yes, and being able to go, if that were the direction you chose, being able to go and start the conversations of who we might be able to bring in for a year as well. That would be beneficial to us.
Is that where you invite the Rolodex in? You're saying, would the Rolodex be Vince's list?
No, not necessarily.
No, internal means people that already work in the district. Right. Which is a fairly short list of people.
Right, and then an internal with a Rolodex would be people that the board would know and not opening it up to, like, bringing that list in. So if Sherry knows somebody, or Taylor, or Tammy, or you,
Or Yvonne,
or
was
Yvonne.
also suggested we could ask her.
So Vince is offering the list to us for free.
Right.
And then we do all the legwork in contacting those folks and incur all the costs.
Yes.
If we don't loss.
Right, if we don't even need the list, we could just work on internal candidates and people that we know.
Right.
So there's like 3 different options.
Yeah.
There's the,
I think it'd be neat if people because I'm pretty new to this, people were on that list, that would a little extra, so if it's free and it doesn't take forever to get, it's something we can get next week and have,
Yeah,
then it just adds to that list and.
and the difference, because that's definitely a benefit. The drawback is that if we might be bringing someone from outside in as the interim, then the office doesn't know that they have the green light to hire, to start the hiring process yet. So these are kind of the factors to weigh.
So would you have an interim superintendent for 1 year, then you would have. If you moved somebody from another department, you would have an interim in their position temporarily for a year, is that what you?
Or I think a temporary administrator, probably.
We did internal.
If we did internal, right?
So if I'm hearing, what I'm hearing is we would encourage internal, but you also want to reach out? Or do you want
I'm
to do the
asking-
internal first and then see if there's anybody and then go from there? You know, what are you thinking?
I'm asking you guys that question. I think personally, because of the timeline, I think that makes me lean towards internal. But I was leaning harder towards internal before I talked to Vince. And he said we could reasonably do it in a month, which was, I thought it was gonna be at least 2 months, and I know that's scary to those guys.
So we decided on internal, looking internally, then we would, at our June 10th meeting, we would have the Q and Qs posted. And then public comment on the June 10th meeting, or would we have another meeting after June 10th? How would?
I would think no later than June 10th. I wondered how we felt about possibly the 3rd for that, just because we want to get
Get it out
the
there.
ball rolling as quickly as possible.
Because we're gonna adopt the Qs and Ts and X's tonight, right?
We are going to propose
Mm-hmm.
the Q and Qs tonight, I hope. And then we adopt them after the public has had a chance to comment.
Yeah.
And we've made any revisions that we might make.
Okay.
So on the 3rd, we could have a meeting, we could post them out there.
Post them before the 3rd, invite public comment on the 3rd, and then after the 3rd, we are authorized to contact potential candidates. Kind of if we're going with internal, then they all know, and you know, they can put in their applications at that point.
So we could potentially decide on 3rd, we could potentially take action on the Q and Qs that night,
Yes,
and then put it out there. And
that is the hope. The hope is to propose Q and Qs tonight, seek input and adopt them at our next meeting, whether that's the 3rd or the 10th.
Well, I would like to go with the internal first, a real short return on that and go from there.
Okay. Anybody else have thoughts on internal, external? I suppose we could do. I suppose we could do the internals and then expand it if we felt a need,
Yeah, that's what I would think.
but that kind of puts them in potentially a little bit of a hiccup for hiring an outside person, but it does give at least a tentative green light tonight.
So if there were, I'm just throwing this out there, if there was a person in Lane County that were interested in it,
I'm sure there's a couple.
would that qualify as internal or?
No.
Internal means
On
within
our,
South Lane.
okay, I'm just
Currently in South Lane.
thinking Lane County is pretty chummy, so.
But that Lane County person, if we needed an extra in here, would be handy too. Because I can remember when we got these guys in Portland, it cost us some money every time they came down here.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Rented a hotel room and, you know, it was.
what if,
Yeah, it does.
under Q and Qs under number 5, it's a preferred experience, B, not eligible for a permanent position?
That was just then.
Yeah, I
We
would,
would still-
I don't know if we want to include it with that wording, we might want to say
There-
not interested in permanent.
So this
Or
should be,
just-
Or just take it out.
Yeah.
There was some room over that the
Yeah,
last time.
so that they can do something, if you apply for the interim or a bit,
Yeah.
you can't.
Yeah, so we want to strike that.
And there's some disagreement about how that got into the list, but the notion at the time was that
OSBA.
we were, that's what I think, and he doesn't remember saying that, but whatever, it's water under the bridge. The notion was that people might be discouraged from applying for the permanent if they thought that we were just gonna hire the interim position for the interim person for the permanent position. But I feel like the board agrees that, that caused more trouble than
Yeah,
it alleviated the last time.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to take that out.
Yeah, I would suggest we take that out.
Yeah, we did a lot of heavy lifting with the word preferred.
Right?
We're learning, aren't we?
Yes.
And then could you take out a preferred experience, could you take experience as an interim superintendent, how to just put
Yeah.
experience as a. Experience.
Yeah, yeah, take out the special.
We could just leave A, you know, cause really the emphasis of C is in crisis.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like we're in crisis the way we were the last time around. So let's scratch C.
And I think there's a reason for that. It's because we have these directors
Exactly.
that have done a wonderful job since February, keeping this office together and the school district together, and we thank all of you guys so much.
But have also been in these positions for
I
a
can
number
make
of
edits
years
right
now.
now, so is
I think
there,
that's also.
We're striking B and C.
so just keep the experience as an interim superintendent or not?
No.
No, so if we're doing, for this first one, if we're doing it as an internal task. As far as I know, we don't have anybody in the district that's been an intern.
So just keep preferred experience.
Oh, it's still preferred.
A and B.
Leave it.
I just don't
Yeah,
want
I'll
anybody
add-
to not apply because they think,
I'll add to the internal part of it is I think the important, I've talked with some people about this, what they'd like to see, and I think. Like, do we search nationwide, and I think budget is a lot of the issue, we've seen in the news, we see budgets across the state, is miles of the road, like we talked about in previous meetings, where there's cuts, and we talked earlier about there being $50,000 in that fund, that 2320 fund. For this, for the superintendent search, and so the more we can, obviously we don't pick somebody just to pick somebody, but the more we can save. I think the patrons of the district will see that we're doing that, being financially responsible. And then also making sure that we kind of do this seamlessly, right? We just kind of flow like we've been doing, we've been flowing, like, so thank you to the administration for keeping it flowing fairly smoothly.
Yeah, and I like the idea of someone who already knows what's going on in the district, just continuing the work that we've been doing, because it's been forward in such a positive way.
And we know them, they know us, we know the schools know them, that's a huge time saver.
And that was a thing that Yvonne brought up, when I was talking to her about her leaving, and she's like, you know, we've been doing so much with the PLCs and the SEL and so on and so forth, and making like big systemic changes in the district. Staff are worried that would drop off, right? That we really need to, we're almost there, I think, but we really need someone who will see that through and make sure that that becomes fully implemented district-wide.
And we made decisions and made promises to the staff that we would keep the course, and I don't want to let them down and change.
So that would be more in my mind internal, because they're already doing the work. And you know what we're talking about.
Yeah. So Jeff, I haven't heard much from you. Do you have anything to chime in?
No, my, I think for interim interim is fine, but I think when you go for that permanent, you need to open it up broader, because this community really looks at the transparency issues of it and everything that you're doing your due diligence. And so I just think that even if you hire the interim and hire them as the permanent, that's fine, as long as you just go through that due diligence
Right.
process.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna be under the microscope.
Yeah.
And I really think, I strongly, if not OSBA, that's fine, I'm fine with not using OSBA. But I really would hope that we would use an agency to help us with that. There are so many little pitfalls along the way where we could get into some really big financial trouble in the long run if we didn't do it just right.
Right. Are you saying interim for?
No, not for the interim, for the permanent. Yeah, we want to get
For-
professional help with the permanent.
I agree.
Okay,
Someone local statement.
so what I think I'm hearing, just looking around the room, is I'm feeling like we're getting consensus around. Seek internal candidates for the interim position. And do the bulk of that work ourselves. And then hire a firm for the permanent position. And hire a firm.
And start that early in the fall.
Yeah, absolutely. Like September, probably, if not, July.
But we'll have a lot of discussions before then on what we're looking for and getting input and stuff, so that. We're all ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really improved.
Yeah.
Really improved.
You struck those two lines already?
Yeah.
Let's make a motion to, put those QQs in front of the public at the next meeting.
We can put them on the website. You know, so,
That's what I was thinking.
yeah, put them out there.
I just want to make sure that I captured what you stated, because I felt that there was only the two areas.
Well, I think if we're gonna hire internal, we're gonna have to strike 5A.
No, it's preferred.
You're gonna have people who say, I don't qualify though.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe a better way to say it would be administrative experience.
Yes, yes.
We say district level experience.
Yeah,
There you go.
Okay.
yeah. None of those math teachers from Springfield.
District level.
We weren't gonna mention names.
This district level admin experience with like-sized school districts.
I would
Well, I
strike,
think-
I would strike the like size too.
You're,
Yeah.
we could wordsmith this all day long, but you know, if they're. If somebody is working in that capacity already, then, and in this school district, it is kind of a like-sized school district.
Quite.
So, it is the school district, so
And I guess
it's,
that's right. It's just about exactly the same size.
Superintendent.
Wow. Yesterday it was a different size.
I guess that's right. I'll give you that. It's superintendent experience.
I just want to see Duane for a moment.
You wanna what? I'm gonna agree with Jeff, so you don't have to go retype it.
Oh, he's not typing.
I hope that's being recorded though.
See, we've already.
I'm agreeing with Jeff, that we don't need to strike.
We need to put.
Now, this is the milestone.
But what?
Servant of love, right?
It's on the recording. You can grab it. Go back and grab it in a couple weeks. Screenshot that.
So I was just looking at number 3 and realizing that we have different language around that now. We want to change sustainable climate of trust and transparency to culture of care and
Yes.
belonging.
Yes, we do.
They should gonna have to look at it anyway.
Yeah, I think Tammy got a little excited thinking there would only be one
I
change.
think so. too. She must have been her home or something.
Right, wish I did.
Oh, I like that.
Say that.
What did you say?
Firmly committed to continuing the work of creating a climate of caring and belonging.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Every now and then.
After how many years?
60 something.
culture. It can be in there.
Climate.
Culture of care and belonging is the phrase.
Yeah.
Then
that's what we should.
So for consistency, I'd advocate keeping that.
Of caring along. Pick out climate.
So firmly committed to continuing a culture of care and belonging.
Continuing the work of creating a culture of care.
You got this, Don. Doing the work of creating.
Cats, remember what cats.
Okay, so are we good with this draft 2024 list of qualities and qualifications as amended?
Well, wait, when she gives it back to us.
Do we? I don't know, I'm just, this is just some comments out there. Do we need number 7 on there? Cause I don't know anybody at any level, anywhere in the district that's not supporting student success and all. You know
Yeah, I
what
agree.
mean?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
It
almost,
seems like that.
it's almost insulting.
yeah, yeah.
They have to be.
Yeah.
Support your.
They shouldn't be here if they don't support her.
I mean.
I can go either way on that.
It doesn't add an extra page to it.
Yeah.
I think because we're gonna use this to base our Q and Qs for the permanent, and not everybody has all the programs that we do, and so that would like kind of be front loading that for the next round.
Yeah. I believe we will do this again for the permanent, but it will probably be almost exactly this list. And we will have time if we wish to put a survey out like we did the first time around. But for the interim search, we should put it together tonight, so we can get.
But we also wanted to, right, okay,
We need it.
yeah, but these are a few, something.
Timeline.
What?
We need a big paper with timeline.
Yeah,
So then, just as a reminder, Chairman, what the June 3rd meeting would be for the public comment, we'd have, that's open to staff and community to review, and then it's just similar to a regular public comment. And then they're able to have input. I would just remind you and sharing for you.
That's what I think it would be, yes.
Okay.
Do you all feel like that has long enough to have the Q and Qs up for the public? Yes.
Yes.
Over a week, I think. Well, the 2019 timeline, but the 2018 timeline.
Oh, then Wednesday.
We had the online survey for the Q and Qs available for 1 week.
Yeah, I think with the interim, you're moving fast.
And then we adopted it. So
We have that tomorrow.
So this is actually over a week.
so we're gonna have comments from the public, both written and in person.
Pardon?
So comments from the public, both written and in person, if
They
they
could, yeah, they
could,
can.
I mean, I think it's important to have,
Yeah.
yeah,
They
Sure,
can.
they can submit it, right?
yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
So I guess. What sort of, how do we notify people that they're welcome to send us written comments? Like put it on the website with that line above it, and then
Notify the Senate.
emails. We send an email to our email list.
Facebook, Instagram.
We have a sign in our front yard.
Yes, you can.
I mean, do we reach out to all the parents in a certain way?
That's why I was suggesting perhaps our email list.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cause that's the most, important.
Did we, are we doing this all ourselves then? We're not
Yes.
using anybody?
that's what it sounds like for the interim, yes. We can get Vince to hold our hands on process a little bit. Or we could look for somebody else. COSA had offered to help us with the interim search for free, but then they haven't gotten back to us.
I
So,
think that's what they did with Eugene. What they did was they offered Eugene 3 candidates. They went from there.
okay,
So I would like to throw out that maybe we ask Vince on a very short contract to help compile all the information from this list, because Tanya has another job that is big and it's the end of the year, and I'm imagining there's quite a bit that goes into that.
Well, we're also finishing an OCR complaint that has to be finished, so we're transferring and upgrading our entire web system. That's by the end of this school year as well. I mean, there's just a few other pieces. I mean, we have a lot of it already compiled, which I had prepped for the board leadership up to this point. I just don't want to miss anything, was the only piece. So just being transparent. So.
And if we brought Vince on, he could facilitate the meeting on the 3rd with the public so that we could listen more and not have to, and Taylor wouldn't have to, facilitate the meeting, and he could participate in listening a little more intently to what the public has to say.
That process.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I mean, you're just gonna call on people's talk, is all you're gonna do, so.
right.
Well, but it's the compiling all the information that we would receive from the public with the survey, the people that would pull written stuff, or that would send us written comments as well.
Well, we would just receive all those comments.
Right, but then it has to be compiled and given to us in a way that we can manage it.
Is that something,
Could
is
we
that
have,
something we could do for the board?
I don't know.
could we have them watch the video afterwards and take all the written stuff and do it in the office? If we did go that way. I mean,
I mean, we don't know how many we're gonna count.
I support it. Do whatever.
We had 17 last time with
that what we had?
staff and,
17 comments.
yeah, that was staff, public,
That was back when people weren't coming and talking
Right.
to us all the time.
right? And that's how we came from the first draft to the final draft.
If it went that way again, that feels like a manageable number to me. I mean,
And so, let ask you, jumping up from Taylor, is there a way that we can help with that? And like, can you forward the emails to us and we can manage that?
I mean, it's your work. I mean, you're the board, so absolutely.
I mean, obviously, permanent superintendent's gonna be a whole different ballgame.
I'm
This is
very
short.
happy to let the firm be
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Right. But with this one, I'm,
Yeah,
especially if, the applicants would be people we already know. I feel like I could put 17 comments together if I had to without Colleen's help or somebody else's help, and if it was more than that, I'd be happy to accept some help.
I think part of it too is the timelines and what to get out, when to get out, and
yeah.
community coming in and out and their input, and just making sure legally you're having the things when.
Board synthesizes Q and vote. Okay, so I think we have who we want to do the interim search, which is basically us and maybe some help from OSBA and Vince, particularly the free stuff. Scope.
Which is just about process.
Right.
Basically, yeah.
Scope is internal, presuming that internal applicants come along. The Q and Qs we are happy with. So I think we're just at timeline. And so we should
Because the hiring should be by July 1st, correct?
ideally, yes. The district admin is already starting to work for next year and have been down a person for 3 months. So the sooner we can get somebody in to pick up some of those things.
And July is when you guys take off, is it usually?
Well, July's a busy month, so
Oh, it's a
we
busy-
do some vacationing
Uh-huh.
between us, but there's a lot we have to get done in July, so.
So when's the like most popular vacation time? Would that be early August?
It's just, no.
No.
Spread out.
It-
So it's not like you close down the office,
No, no.
okay,
Only that week of like July 4th.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
I'd say that first week in July, there's some vacationing that happens, but we have summer school going on, and so we just don't always.
Right, yeah, I mean, I know that the office is open year round, I get that,
Yeah.
but at some point, you guys have gotta let each other get a break.
No, we do, like, July is when you get all of those things done that just take a little extra time. And so, it's a really good work time, so it's pretty valuable.
No interruptions.
Well, there are lots less.
Okay, so looking at the two timelines, the 2018 and the 2019 timeline. We've already declared the vacancy. The next thing to do is Q&Q input and adoption.
So we need a motion for that?
No, we're not adopting them tonight. We are setting the meeting.
That's after the public.
Yeah, setting the meeting for the public input. And does the third work for everybody?
Yeah.
5:30.
We're gonna have to.
Looking around the room,
Yep.
Yes.
I thought I was gonna have it off, but you can come in.
right? Well. We know this is gonna involve some extra meetings. Hopefully this one will be pretty short. It should just be this one item. So.
It's never
Are you
good.
checking your calendar, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay, and how's the third look? Good. You're good, okay. So
Which rank number 4?
June 3rd at 5:30,
And then the 10th is our regular meeting, right?
right?
And I won't be at that one, but I'll be online, so.
Okay.
I can do this.
And, you know, hopefully there will be some of this work at that meeting.
Mhm.
To be done. In fact, we can probably have an executive session and interview candidates by then, I
So,
think.
If we do it in executive session.
No.
This says, interview candidates executive session.
You just can't make a decision.
You can't make the decision in executive session. So let's see, adopt Q&Qs.
Yeah, we talked about it, and then I thought,
The salary piece we can also discuss after the Q&Qs. I think, no, I think that has to be open session. That's a question. That's a question that's definitely run by Pace or Hunger for one of the two.
What was it you read?
The discussion of salary and
Oh.
benefits. So after the Q&Qs, the next thing is interviews, it looks like.
You need a deadline for when you turn in the applications, and we need an application, don't we?
We do, but again, if it's just internal, we don't have to post it for a set period of time or anything. So I wanna know if the week between the 3rd and the 10th would be enough for internal candidates to apply, but I don't know if I can legally ask that question right now.
Yeah. And then we can develop possibly we could do on the 10th, we could develop the interview questions. And discuss the contract.
Well, right.
That's-
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so after the 3rd, that's when we would have to, like, pull all the Q&Q comments together. So you gotta have some time.
Okay, so yeah, that's good. On the 10th, we.
So we can lump all 3 of those tasks at once.
Mhm.
Which we
Okay, so
can,
adopt final Q and Qs on the 10th. And some or ask for applications and.
Listen to,
Hmm?
and listen to the public.
Well, we've listened to the public on the 3rd, and we'll be happy to listen to them on the
Oh, that's,
10th,
okay.
but, on the 10th. Adopt the Q and Qs, ask for applications, and set interview questions.
Yep.
All right,
And I assume on the 17th is when we're interview.
yeah, so that would be like 2 weeks from now, we could do the executive session for the interview.
3 weeks in a row, so be it.
Oh, we're gonna be so bonded.
But I have some interview questions.
Okay, yeah. I'd have to reinvent, huh?
Use, call for submissions.
I think I'm cheaper than Vince, but not much. I'll bill you.
I think,
But you're more valuable.
I think you should have a cutoff line on applying, even
Yeah.
though it's kind of set, and, I mean, if you're gonna interview on the 17th, it's kind of obvious, but I think you should still put a timeline on there, just so 5 o'clock on the 17th, somebody doesn't submit an application.
You think that
You buy blank.
13th or 14th?
Yeah,
That would be Thursday or
the
Friday.
Friday before.
The Friday,
The Friday, okay.
so that'd be the 14th of June.
Call for submissions and set interview questions.
And then with the call for submissions.
And then what do we do if no one applies internally?
Then we go with the Rolodex.
Yeah,
And yeah, events have extra meetings in July, and we get Vince's list for sure. Okay, and so then presuming that we do get applicants by the 14th. Then the next step is interviews. And do we have another thing set for June already? Or do we just need to?
Did we have a work session?
no,
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah. I think the 10th was the one and only, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the 24th would be bad for me. Well, actually, no, I can make the 24th.
Well, you don't have to do it on a Monday.
Also true.
I mean, if we needed to have it less than a week between the 17th and the next Monday, we could have it, that week of the.
If we had to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
He's out of town.
Okay.
She does take time off. It's good for you.
I'll be at the beach.
And you can bring it in. Are you on that whole week?
The 17th.
Just the 17th?
Yeah, that week can wouldn't.
Oh, the week of the 17th, okay.
So do we want to push to the 24th? for interviews, or we want to do interviews on the 17th without Tanya?
I like going forward to.
Hmm?
I like.
The 24th? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I don't think it's smart idea to do without time.
Okay, Tammy?
That's fine.
Yeah. 24th.
Yeah.
Okay, so interviews on the 24th.
I thought the 24th didn't work for you.
No, my thing is earlier in the day. I'm fine on the 24th.
So we got 3, 10, and 24.
That's what it's looking like.
Yeah. 24th.
And then,
Do we wanna leave time open for applications past the 14th then?
I think we can do that.
Like the 17th.
Yeah.
The last weekend.
Yeah, get it together.
I mean, we could go as late as the 21st if we wanted. No, okay.
Tanya won't be here to help.
Yeah, she's, remember when we do this kind of stuff, Tanya will sort of collate stuff for us and.
Fair.
Back to it.
Okay.
She doesn't want to do that with sand all over it.
So we're sticking with applications due by 14.
Okay.
Okay. That way she'll have them all in on Friday and she can do them on the weekend before she goes to vacation.
If she won't be doing anything else.
Okay, 624 interviews, and then it looks like we gave ourselves last time like that week for reference checks. And then we got back together to talk about how the reference checks went.
Well.
When's our
Reference checks
organizational meeting?
training. We have a training for the reference checks.
Oh, there was a training.
You guys, we're internal. I mean, who are we gonna ask ourselves? I mean, it's not like we're gonna call them the district.
Board chair.
Yeah, we call the board chair and board vice chair and.
It is a fair point. I was wondering about that.
Well, we can talk to the people internally that work, that are partners.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
Feel like we should still talk to some
Yeah,
people,
yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah, so we're still gonna need some time for that. So let's say the 24th to the 1st. Reference checks.
Remember, hiring is gonna be July 1st, though, right?
Well, I think,
Ideally, but we gotta go through all the steps. I mean,
so if we didn't have a candidate by the 1st of July, we would have to name someone to be.
we would have to declare an acting superintendent.
So,
And is everybody gone that week of July?
so some I have on my calendar is going to be out like June 29th in the following. So it'd be nice if we can button it up by the 20, say like the 28th.
Okay,
And looking at our schedule, it was like we met a lot. Day, the very next day, and the very next day.
Yeah.
Well, and it's gonna be different from this one, and you know, and realistically, I think this is gonna go smooth because. It's kind of been vacant for a while, and if that thought's not going through somebody's mind already, then
Mhm.
it's.
It's not
we-
going to.
It's gonna go.
I almost feel as well, like looking at this schedule. And maybe in the morning, looking at the schedule again and surely plugging it in and putting the tasks in with it. That we might be able to firm it up even more. I don't know, what do you think, Taylor? And I mean,
well, we can't make adjustments without
No.
everybody else's
no,
input.
that's why I was going to finish that thought up with and then send it out for, proposal.
I
See if it works.
I just
But-
have one more ask. Is there a meeting or do we want to fold into like, what the salary and benefits would be? Like, we have to have a talk about that in executive session.
Yeah, I think that we can also do on the. Either the 10th or the 24th.
I think we need to have for the 24th.
We're not meeting on the
We're having
24th, though.
That was
It's-
24th is in.
Oh, yes, we are, sorry, yeah, 17.
I think we need to
Right.
do it on the 10th.
Okay,
An executive session, because we need to have that information ready for people.
okay. I think that's a good point. Interviews, reference checks. And then after reference checks, we have contract negotiation. And then after that, approve the interim, and I don't have dates. I don't have an end date for reference checks yet, or contract negotiations, or approve interim.
Yeah.
Okay, so. I thought I heard a proposal of the 24th to the 28th, or 25th to the 28th for reference checks. So we can get them done while you're still here. Okay.
Is she taking another vacation?
Same one.
Oh,
Oh, well, and other people are gonna be gone too. And so then. I guess we need to get together after reference checks.
Yep.
Okay, so sometime after what's our earliest availability after the 28th? To get together,
No, I'm thinking we could button this all up between that 24th and 27th, so.
Okay, and
or do we
and
get
have it
together on the
finalized.
28th?
Yeah.
That's what excuse me, that's what I thought you were reading to, let's get this done.
So are we at 3, 10, 24, 28 now?
Yes.
24, 28.
There'd be something besides sandwiches.
If Sherry's in charge of food, if I'm running the show, then and doing paperwork, then she can make it.
Yeah. So. There you go. Debrief reference checks.
Can we meet here earlier on the 28th, so we're not meeting at 5:30 on Friday night?
Yeah, that's.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yes, presumably.
We can do the 27th. Maybe Thursday.
Okay. We're assuming we can get reference checks in 2.5 days. Probably reasonable.
3 o'clock.
Again, it won't be that many people, and it would be people we know that we'd be reference checking with.
3 o'clock on Friday? Friday works well for me, yeah.
Yeah, I like Friday early.
3 o'clock.
I think I like Friday better than Thursday, just because I did some of the reference checks last time, and
I'm
it
just
did take
thinking
some time.
people that may apply are gonna be gone at the first week of July. And in the morning, so,
Right, so that's why we're shooting for the 27th to 20th.
okay, I would say the 27th, just to give us more time to. Cause so we need to have a contract negotiation and we have to approve, is the steps after we do the reference checks?
After reference checks, then we then the board gives board leadership the authority to negotiate a contract with the selected person. And then, once we have,
So that Friday would only be for the reference checking to come back to what it is to the rest of the board, is that what we're saying? And to give you the go ahead to make the offer and. Okay,
so debrief reference checks, select preferred candidate.
and talk about salary and that type of stuff, is that what, that day?
Well, we hopefully have had the salary discussion on the 10th,
Oh, okay.
so that when we put out for the position, we can tell them. We can tell them what the salary is expected to be, yeah, at least give a range.
And I would assume that that information might come from Vince or OSBA.
Probably.
On the 27th or 27th, I think it's so.
I have a 2022 superintendent salary schedule.
But this isn't your superintendent. You're not gonna pay him the same amount.
You don't think you're paying interim the same as a,
No.
as a permanent?
Mhm.
Okay, well, we'll talk to Vince.
Yeah,
Let's see what he says. So select candidate on the 28th, contract negotiations thereafter. And then the next thing is to hopefully approve an interim superintendent. And I guess the question is, when after the 28th could we get back together for that? And also, when's our organizational meeting?
We are legally required to do that too, aren't we?
Yeah, that's
But
the
you
thing.
know what? Yeah, I'm sorry, but the ESD takes all July off and does it the first meeting in August.
Seems like I
That's-
seem to remember we had a July deadline. for-
No, that's just what your mom said. The ESD has done it that way all the time.
Do we have our organizational meeting for the summer schedule yet, Tanya?
Sorry, I was sleeping.
No, because we really haven't approved of our calendar, I don't think, for the year. Yeah.
We approved the calendar, but what we haven't done is gone back through and tried to
We
fill
had it for July 8th.
July 8th.
I think last year was the first year we've ever had it in July. We've always had it in August prior to last year.
Okay,
It's nice to take July off.
it is, but in this
That's happening
case,
this year.
if we need to get back together anyway, should we have the organizational meeting and the hiring of the
Yeah, no reason not.
interim superintendent on July 8th?
I think you should have just to get some
Yeah.
stability.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And move things along, and then so that other hire can happen as fast as possible.
right, right.
Right. That other hire, actually, if, I mean, they can start the process tonight now that we've decided that we're searching internally. So that's, I think, is a good thing that we're doing, is allowing them to get some backfill in as soon as possible.
We don't even know if we're having the applicants, though.
Well, and, yeah,
Well, we can can't we list the posting and then withdraw it if we decided that's not the way that it's gonna happen?
if nobody applies, then we just put out a broader post.
Right,
I would wait until we hire an interim superintendent, because they might have an opinion too. And we're probably, I mean,
Well, but if we're hiring our interim superintendent from within, then they'll be able to have that opinion. They'll be able to weigh in. You're talking about hiring an additional admin, right?
mhm.
Yeah.
And I can't see that coming from within. Because
No.
we're already taking somebody else, yeah.
Right, right. So, yeah, I'm expecting that, or I'm anticipating that they would be bringing in somebody from outside to be an administrator for potentially just the 1 year.
Mhm.
I think that that's gonna happen because if somebody's applying for the position and gets it. And they don't replace themselves, then they're thinking that their job shouldn't be there in the first place, so. I kind of think that that's a given, that it's gonna happen that way.
Yeah, I'm feeling that way too.
Yeah,
What we as a cabinet team can do now is start. Not necessarily posting for that, but start putting feelers out to see where there's interest. I don't know that we would post the position until
right, yeah,
the board has made a decision.
Okay,
But being able to talk to others in the county about a possible opening, is I think what's beneficial to us.
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So if we were able to approve an interim superintendent on the 8th of July, would that be soon enough? And also be long enough to give us the chance to do our due diligence?
I thought we were back. What are we doing on the 28th?
The 28th is debriefing the reference checks, selecting the preferred candidate,
Okay,
and which then authorizes
Oh,
board
okay.
leadership to go negotiate the contract.
We have to do the voting in public.
right.
Right. And so then presumably, we could come back on the 8th, with a contract
Mhm.
and a hire to approve.
Okay, so if, but if we wait until the 8th to do that, we have to name an interim. Or, sorry, an acting, an acting.
Name an acting superintendent for a week.
Who would likely be in the Cook Islands until the 9th of July, just so you know.
Okay. Wow, Cook Islands, cool. I don't even know where those are.
That's exactly the point.
I hear there's no cell service there.
Absolutely not.
There's a lot of Pacific Ocean.
There's a lot of ocean.
They've got a coconut phone.
Where's this? I'll check it out.
So like.
Let's get through June and go from there, guys.
Okay.
Well, I think this is a workable timeline. If we need to adjust it for some
Yeah,
reason, we
yeah.
can. But yeah, so
My only push would be to move the 28th to the 27th.
okay,
And we don't have to decide it tonight, but just think about it.
okay.
And,
I will
and
put-
I think the 27th, I think that's okay.
Hmm.
So. That
All
would
right,
put Jeff and I out.
I'll put 27 or 28.
Saturday.
Yeah, there you go.
And yeah, we can firm that up at a future meeting, as the date gets a little
Right.
closer.
One works for me.
So we're looking at, June 3rd, input on the Q and Qs and adopt the Q and Qs. Or no, input on the Q and Qs, the 10th, adopt the Q and Qs, put out for applications, set the interview questions, and discuss what the salary would be. The 24th, so 2 weeks later, we do interviews. 24th to 28th, 27th or 28th, excuse me, reference checks. 27th or 28th, debrief on the reference checks, select a preferred candidate, authorize contract negotiations, and then July 8th, approve interim and contract. Okay.
Figure out what is executive and what's not, and make sure.
Yeah, we will make sure to
Both.
check with Vince and or Nancy to make sure that we're doing the right things in executive and the right things in public, for sure.
And all these dates go flexible again.
Just the 27th and 28th.
We're trying to lock the rest of them in. Trying to lock the rest of them in, but the 27th and 28th is still a question mark. And the 8th could possibly be flexed, but it just makes sense if we have a meeting that day anyway, I think. We just do it that day. And if people are gonna be out of town on the 30th anyway, then that's an extra reason to wait till the 8th. So, I guess on the 27th or 28th, we will need to declare acting superintendent until interim is hired. Okay. I think that's it. Yes.
About the student. Oh.
Hmm.
About the students.
The student board members.
Right.
Well, and I clarified or told Tanya, we've never given a gift for everybody. It's always the graduating senior.
Sure, I have done that, is what I had said in the email.
No, but it was, and I don't know why you were doing that, because you must have a. But we must, no, I'm saying why you were doing it, because we must have a budget for it, because you were saying you were paying for it.
Why it was falling on your shoulders is what she's.
Yeah.
is her-
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm
Not
saying.
like, how dare you, but
Yeah, we know.
why did you get stuck with it, I think is more.
I think it's sweet.
Stuck with it's too
Yeah.
harsh, but you know.
Yeah.
Thank you for.
Yeah, so what about gifts for the?
It's a sweet little gift bag.
Yeah.
And I've got some neat little tokens if you guys walk by the desk. We've got, top line pen. We've got, little notes, card. Colleen has some candy she had brought in, so we've got plenty of stuff, don't worry about it, Sherry. But just a
Well,
little
I
cute
just don't
card.
think you ought to be paying for it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I did it this year.
And then if it's a senior, I mean, don't they,
Well,
Whatever.
my thought, I told Tanya, my thought was, since they're our representatives and they're helping us, maybe we should step up and contribute a little bit to this. And I don't think it should just be the senior that. Rewarded with
It's
this.
5 kids, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and not huge gifts that we're giving them, so.
yeah.
I'm happy to pitch in. I don't have any fabulous ideas on what it would be, but I fully support the notion.
Well, my thought was, if each of us picked a local business and got 5 $10 gift cards. Like 5 $10 gift cards from Pinocchio's,
Gas card from Safeway or Walmart.
think of all the places on Main Street, like 5 $10 gift cards from the light.
Yeah, like local.
Okay.
So then the board supporting local. and
Yeah.
also recognizing.
Yeah, and like Colleen and I were talking, there's 5 different coffee places, you could get one $10 gift card from each one of them, and
I don't know what,
My kids would be in heaven.
yeah.
are you saying, I don't know what you're saying.
Like if each of us
Uh-huh.
got 5 $10 gift cards, put them in these little gift bags for the kids,
For the 10th.
yeah. That would be a nice little going away, thank you very much for coming every month. Twice
I
sometimes.
think so too, but what I'm asking is there not a fund for that? I mean, I just.
We don't have money in the budget.
I think
And you cannot, I'll speak for you, and like, seriously, you cannot do gift cards.
So in the,
With the funds, yes, we do not purchase gift cards.
We can do gift cards, the district can't.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay,
It's taxable income,
right.
if the district gives it.
Right.
I'm just
There's other
wondering
reasons we can't
how
do
it's
gift
done
cards.
previously, because they've always. Before you did it, how when Krista did it, did she just do it out of her own pocket? I just.
Or maybe it was just all district swag.
there was some other financial stuff going on, it wasn't entirely copacetic.
Well, I know, I think, didn't the administrators have a fund that you put into for those type of things a long time ago?
But that was deemed not, we didn't continue that.
Why was that?
It's a longer story.
Okay.
I could support Tammy.
Basically, it's not okay.
Yeah.
Local businesses get.
For small. We not only gets the next generation into those businesses, down there, they make an outlet of it, just some appreciation, and they are the next generation. We have got them.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've never had students. We've had students in the past participate regularly and faithfully. But these guys,
But not
Well,
coming
they're
every
here for the
week.
whole meeting.
Yeah.
they're here for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get some applicants. Get on board with it.
This much student interest, this is just remarkable. I tell other people that we have this many kids that come to our meet, and they're just amazed. So I think it's something we need to reward, and
Yeah.
we are the ones that benefited the most from them. So
The other thing we've done in the past, and one of you could take this on, is like if one of you took charge and then everybody else just gave that person as much cash as they were comfortable with. Then that person would just go buy the gift card, so not everybody would have to go to the store.
It's all optional. The bags will be there, and if you choose to put something in, you can. That's the best route.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
So the bags will be there, if you're gonna do it, and we can
When is their last day? Would it be the 10th?
Yeah,
The bags will be in your office,
Yeah.
how early, because I'm leaving on the 8th, will it be on?
so they're now, so they're just set, open, but they'll be ready. So if you choose, you
So 5 kids, so if you
Right.
do anything, 5 of whatever it is.
Do we wanna like? Go so far as making listed businesses, so we're not doubling up?
No, no.
don't make it complicated,
Sure,
just if you choose.
We've
I'm
kind of
fine with that.
talked everything.
Yeah, you support, do it if you like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Two people get pizza, they can afford pizza, then.
Right. It's Pinocchio's. Okay, I think that's everything we have to do for tonight. Good work, everybody. That was a lot. And we have an aggressive, but I think reasonable timeline.